Terence, I see that you made the poster for September already. Very fast.
Catch Monday before you go.
Okay, so now it's 9:23 on my clock. So we are going to start a guided practical meditation session. So now no more theory. So the Tuesday Zoom session, because we are covering like some theory and we don't have much time to do the full meditation routine. Normally in my other sessions, I have like a Monday Google Hangout session where 1.5 to 2 full hours is dedicated to just meditation instructions, so we can do the full range, from the relaxation to the body all the way to the vipassana, open, undirected, unrestricted kind of attention to all loving kindness meditation, right? So now we just restrict to the breath meditation, right? We go by theme, by the topic. Okay, so before we start, we find a comfortable sitting position. Make sure you're comfortable and seated upright. Right, if you do not have a back injury, then you don't need to lie on the back. Oh, there's a question. Where can we find this link? Okay, I will send to you later. I'm trying to find the link as well. Okay, once you're ready, you can close our eyes. Yeah, relax our whole body, relax the muscles. Okay, so in this guided session, because this is sort of a live stream, right? So there's probably lots of audience, and I cannot guarantee, that everybody can calm down at the same rate, right? So if let's say I move on to the next instruction, and if you cannot follow, right, you can remain in the previous instruction. You don't have to follow. But if you wish to follow, yes, by all means. Because since it's recorded on live stream and also eventually uploaded on YouTube, you can replay as many times as you want. If you, let's say you want to, you lose track on instructions, or you want to sort of train on your own. Okay, so now I'm going to proceed. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mentally sweep the body from head to toe, from our crown all the way to the toes, by feeling the sensations of the body. Right. So if you want, you can do 2-in-1, visualize a bit like the MRI scan. So from the crown of the head down. So how do we scan, right? So there's a certain mental kind of attitude or mental kind of posture when we perform this sweeping technique. So first is, number one is, we do not cling to all the sensations. Whatever sensation that arises, we do not pull them. That means we don't have greed, neither do we push them away. So that is hatred, right? We do not reject, we do not pull. Right? So how to maintain this neutrality? We just treat all the sensations as passerbys. Right? So whatever sensation you experience from head down, you just wish them well and happy. So to further help you identify what kind of sensations, we generally can classify the experiences into 4 categories called the 4 elements: earth, fire, wind, and water. These are nothing magical. The earth actually represents hard and soft sensations. Fire represents hot and cold sensations. Wind represents fast and slow movements. And water represents moist or dry. So as you feel from the head down all the way to the toes, these various sensations may appear. Or if you feel something beyond that, doesn't matter, right? Whatever sensation that arises, you just wish them well and happy. So it is important to be at peace with all the sensations. So I leave it to your own time to scan the body for a few minutes. Okay, once we are done with the body, at peace with the body, then we can start to feel the breath. So this time we isolate our attention to one small area, one small point. It can be either below the nostril and above the upper lip, one small region, or you can isolate your attention to the abdomen, right? One small region. Right? You don't have to feel the entire breath coming into your windpipe and your lungs, right? Just one small point. Once you stick to that particular point and you stay with it throughout the entire breath meditation. So this is not a forced or coerced kind of directed attention. It's a gentle attention, and there's no need to control the breathing. Let our in and out breath be our natural reflex action. So we add thoughts of loving kindness when we inhale, right? Whenever there's inhalation, we wish the breath well. Whenever there's exhalation, we wish the breath happy. Right? So there's no need to control the in and out breath. However fast or slow, long and short, doesn't matter. So this is the first and foremost important step to make friends with the breath. So for those whose minds are more sensitive, you can feel the four elements rather than the breath. Then by all means, you wish the four elements that arise well and happy, whichever appears faster. So the whole idea is not to struggle or fight with the breath. Any form of control is something like violence. Violence to the mind, violence to the breath. So we're actually training non-violence. Inhale well, exhale happy, until the mind becomes calm. Some meditators have the habit of fixating the mind, right? Try to force the mind. This is the issues with a lot of meditators, because when we sort of force or coerce the mind, we're actually producing this desire. So the more we want the mind to be still, then the more the mind gets agitated, more stressed. So we focus more on the loving kindness. Inhale well, exhale happy. We focus on the cause and the conditions, and the effect will be that the mind will settle naturally by itself as a byproduct. Okay, and if your mind is calm and sort of contented, right, then this is the platform for the mind to receive the truth, receive the teachings of impermanence, get in touch with reality, get in touch with change. Right? That's introducing the other thought, which is non-greed. So whenever we breathe in and out, there's a very micro cycle of birth and death, rising and falling, impermanence, inconstancy, whatever you call it, just a mental reminder. Right? So when you breathe in and out, right, the four elements go through this birth and death. So how does these four elements go through birth and death? Right? So if we breathe in and out, if we feel the density, the hardness and softness change when we breathe in and out, then that's the birth and death of the earth element. If we feel any change in temperature, hot and cold, when we breathe in and out, then there's some birth and death of the fire element. And if we breathe in and out and we feel there are changes in the breathing rate, the speed of the air, then there's a birth and death of the wind element. And if we breathe in and out and we feel there are changes in the humidity, then there's a birth and death of the water element. So again, there's no need to purposely generate the sensations, whichever sensation that arises first, then you just take note. So every moment, just take note, which one arises, which one arises, which one arises. Yeah? So don't cling on to any of them. The whole idea is to observe them as naturally as possible, to understand the mind and the breath, and see them as they really are. continue to be mindful of this arising and passing away until the mind settles, till it cannot settle any further. That is to say that the mind becomes stable. And you settle until it becomes stable. I call this the stability point. So the observing or the contemplation of impermanence will make our mind like Teflon, non-stick. And if our minds are at the stability point, right, once the rate of settling is so negligible, then you can enjoy this experience of calmness. Basically, it's to remember this emotion, important, remember this emotion, and also not forgetting to be mindful of this impermanence of the breath. So two things, mindful of emotion and mindful of the impermanence of the breath. So the emotion part is used to be like a control setting so that we can differentiate the different levels of concentration later. Okay, once you have tasted this experience of this base level, you need to fulfill these two criteria. First is you have remembered this emotion. Number two, criteria number two, the mind has to be calm. So once you have fulfilled these two criteria, then if you wish to proceed, right, then you can sort of change gear, you can up the gear. So how to do that? So we make a wish in our mind, make an aspiration. May I let go of this state of mind, just like a child letting go of a balloon. So once we release the mind, right, the mind will evolve naturally by itself to another level. So what we need to do is just sit back and don't need to exert anything. Just observe the transition of the mind. So once the mind has transited from ground level to the first level, then there will be obvious change of emotion, right? If you've done it correctly, a pleasant emotion will manifest. And the ground level is bland emotion. So once you reach the first level, a pleasant emotion will manifest. So you just be mindful of this emotion and also be mindful of the impermanence of the breath. So mindful of two things. So continue to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath until the mind reach a new rate of calmness. Okay, once the mind is relatively settled or reached a stability point, then you can enjoy this first level of concentration. And basically, it's to remember this emotion and also not forgetting the impermanence of the breath. So two things. Yeah. Okay, once you have tasted the first level of concentration, make sure you have fulfilled the two criteria. Criteria number one is that you have remembered this emotion of the first level. And criteria number two, that the mind has to be calm. And you may choose to remain, or if you want and you think you're ready, then you can proceed to increase the gear. Right, so we do the same aspiration. May I let go of the first level of concentration, just like a child letting go of a balloon. So once we release the mind will actually evolve naturally by itself like a spring. You don't have to do anything. You just need to observe the transition. Okay, once the mind has reached the second level of concentration, right, a new kind of pleasant emotion should manifest. If you've done it correctly, then you just be mindful of this new pleasant emotion and also continue to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath until it reaches a new rate of calmness. Okay, once the mind has reached this constant rate of calmness, right, that means the mind, the rate of settling is so negligible, and you find the mind stable, then you can enjoy this second level of concentration. Basically, is to remember this emotion and also not forgetting, be mindful of the impermanence of the breath. Right, so two things, emotion and impermanence of the breath. Okay, once you have tasted the second level of concentration, make sure you fulfill the two criteria. Criteria number one, you have taken note of the emotion of the second level, and criteria number two, that your mind has to be calm. Right, so you have two options, either to remain at the second level, or if you want, you can proceed to increase the gear. So if you wish to proceed, then you can make a wish to let go of this mind, just like a child letting go of a balloon. Once you release the mind, and the mind will evolve naturally by itself, like a spring, so we don't interfere, we just let it evolve by itself as we observe the transition of the mind. Okay, once the mind has reached the third level, right, then another kind of pleasant emotion will manifest. So you just be mindful of this emotion, and simultaneously be mindful of the impermanence of the breath until the mind reaches a new state of calmness. Okay, and once the mind has settled down, you find the mind is calm and stable, and you can enjoy the third level of concentration. Basically, it's to remember the emotion of this third level when the mind is calm, and also not forgetting to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath. And the impermanence of the breath is like the acceleration pedal, so you don't suddenly release it. Don't suddenly let go. So maintain this mindfulness of both things. Okay, once the mind has tasted the third level of concentration, right, basically you need to fulfill the two criteria. Criteria number one, you have taken note of the emotion on the third level, and criteria number two, that the mind has to be calm. Right, once you have these two criteria, then you can choose to remain there, or if you wish, you can proceed to increase the gear. And what we can do is make a wish to let go on the third level of concentration, just like a child letting go of a balloon. So the mind will actually evolve naturally by itself, just like a spring, and we don't need to interfere. You just observe the transition of the mind. Okay, once the mind has reached the fourth level of concentration, and if you've done it correctly, it will be a different kind of emotion. It is called equanimity, neither joyful nor happy. Right? So it's like a different kind of emotion, something like very refreshing and new for those who are first timers. So you just be mindful of this new emotion called equanimity and continue to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath until the mind reaches this new rate of calmness. Okay, once mind has settled down or reached a new rate of calm, then we can enjoy the fourth level of concentration. Basically, is to remember the emotion and also not forgetting to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath. So in the Buddhist Eightfold Path, the path number 8, which is right concentration, is defined as these 4 levels of concentration, or the 4 jhanas in the Pali language. So the reason being the 4th level is because of this equanimity is used to sharpen the mindfulness or purify the mindfulness. So it's a bit like charging the mind with the battery. But of course, this is not permanent. This battery will dissipate over time if we get up of meditation. So there are other forms of training to sort of save the battery, change the mind into the battery saving mode. But for now, due to a time constraint, we are going to proceed to reverse the order. All right. So once you have fulfilled the two criteria of the fourth level, and make sure the mind is calm and you have taken note of the emotion, then we go down to the third level and make a wish to go down. So as we observe the transition of the mind, and we also continue to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath. And once we are at the third level, make sure you fulfill the two criteria, right? The mind is calm, and you have taken note of the experience of the third level. And you can make a wish to come down, lower the gear to the second level. So as we observe the transition of the mind, we continue to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath. And once the mind is at the second level, make sure to fulfill the two criteria. Right? Then the mind, you've taken note of the emotion on the second level, and also the mind has to be calm. Important, if not, there will be energy stuck. And the reason of this calm and settled mind is a measurement of detachment or non-clinging. So once you have fulfilled the two criteria, then you can make a wish to come down to the first level of concentration. So as you observe the transition of the mind, continue to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath. And once the mind is at the first level of concentration, make sure and you fulfill the two criteria. And you have taken note of the emotion of the first level, and also the mind has to be calm. Right, so once you fulfill the two criteria, then you can make a wish to come down to base point, right, back to the one-pointedness. So as we observe the transition of the mind, and we also continue to be mindful of the impermanence of the breath. Okay, so once you are at the ground level, make sure it's a bland emotion, no more pleasant emotion, and the mind have to maintain calm, right? And then we can proceed to feel the entire body. That means start to feel the fingertips, feel the toes. No need to focus on the breath anymore. Come back to the sense sphere, right? So as we recondition the mind, our cognitive function back to the normal setting, right? The whole idea is to maintain this calm and peace. It's the same concept earlier on. We restrict the mind to one small area and the breath, right? So now the mind is unrestricted, but the concept is still the same, right? The mind can be all over the place, but whatever sense stimuli we are in contact with, we need to be aware of impermanence and make sure the mind is calm and settled. Whenever we react to any sense stimuli, any agitation, then there will be tension and suffering. Right, so it's basically maintaining this calm. Okay, so with that in mind, we conclude today's session. We can open our eyes once we are done. Okay, so now it's 10:11. Any problems or questions on the ground? No, going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, so any question next session? Next we can ask. Okay, so we can conclude with the chant, dedication chant. Okay, so this is the Buddhist practice when we have sort of performed meritorious actions and doing something good, then we can dedicate them to unseen beings. Right? It can be guardian spirits or the hungry ghosts. Right? So this is the chant. So those who wish to chant along can follow. Akasata ja bhumata devanaga mahitika punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakantu loka sasanang Etavata ca ampehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva sabbe buddha sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Transference of merits to the departed. Idang minyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang minyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang minyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Aspiration imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yawa nibbana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, this ends the today's session.
Thank you, Bante, once again. So gentle reminder, next week will be beginning of the month of September already. Very
Okay.
fast.
Very fast.
So we still haven't enlightened yet, not 7 days.
It's a
Okay.
continuous 7 days, not separately.
Sadhu Bante. So
Okay.
thank you once again for accepting MSPS invitation. So we'll see everyone again next week. Same time, same place, and Zoom.
Okay. Good night.
Thank you, Bante.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Sadhu.